Welcome to Plant Your Seed. I'm your host, Fred Ferris. On each episode, we share stories of how ordinary people have transformed their lives. Each story is compassionate, each story is authentic, and each story is a transformation. Here are the stories of the people who are changing our world by transitioning to a plant-based diet. Today I share the story of Bettina Campolucci Bordi. You might know her better as the driving force behind Bettina's Kitchen. Bettina is a chef who hosts retreats, writes cookbooks, and has workshops in London. She inspires people to eat seasonally and cook from scratch. Here's Bettina's transformative story. Recently, you were in Bali.
Yes.
That looked like an amazing trip.
Yes, it was. It's amazing.
How did you get started hosting retreats?
So I started hosting retreats 7 years ago, and it's kind of how I sort of got into the wellness industry, and it's the reason I started cooking plant-based. My background is in food and beverage and hotel management, so I was working at a retreat center as a food and beverage manager, and I was working horrendous long hours, and sort of realized that it's not really what I wanted to do. Food and beverage, as you know, can be quite unhealthy in terms of the long hours and bad habits. So
Right.
I decided to start running retreats, and the first 3 to 4 years I co-hosted them, and I've been running them and freelancing at retreats ever since. So that's kind of how I got started, and I've always been really passionate about cooking. So when I started running retreats, I was very keen on cooking at them, and at the time, it was very popular for juice detoxes and boot camps. So I decided that instead of doing that, it would be great if people could eat at the retreat. So a solution to that was doing them plant-based and gluten-free. And at the time, I was also very intolerant to gluten, so it was just a natural thing to make them gluten-free as well.
You deal with a lot of plant-based and gluten-free.
Yeah, it's what I specialize in.
Is that because you have a gluten intolerance?
It's how it started. It started out because I had a gluten intolerance, but then it's just something that I specialized in or became quite good at doing just because I tried to find solutions for myself. So free from cooking in general, I end up having quite a lot of clients that want recipe development that is specifically free from certain foods, or gluten-free and vegan, which is very niche and was very niche 7 years ago, but now it's booming.
I can imagine. It seems like there's a lot of people that I know that are gluten-free, and they're always asking me, like, well, how can you be gluten-free and vegan? And, you know, it just seems like it's so difficult. What would you say to people like that?
I would say that I think the most difficult part of that is probably travel. If you travel a lot, then the combination of being gluten-free and vegan can be quite difficult. But with the products and ingredients that are readily available across everywhere now, it's a lot easier than it used to be. I won't say it's super easy regardless of where you are, but I could definitely vouch and say it's a lot easier than it used to be, because being vegan and gluten-free 7 years ago was not that easy. But it's getting a lot easier, and restaurants, hotels, all those type of outlets are really sort of catching on to this and catering for people that are vegan and gluten-free and have allergies in general, because there's so many people that suffer from allergies nowadays.
When did you start? 7 years ago? Is that when you started kind of your healthy journey? Or was it something that you already were doing and then kind of started in the wellness space?
No, I think I would have to say that my wellness journey probably started 7 years ago when I started working in the wellness industry. And that sort of trickled through and sparked a passion and a curiosity about educating myself more. In the beginning, I was self-taught, so I taught myself how to cook plant-based through books, and then found courses and sort of started educating myself more and more, the more sort of involved I got into the industry.
Did you actually go to LA to the Matthew Kenny Culinary?
I did partially go to LA and do Matthew Kenny, and I also did some of his online courses.
Is your entire family plant-based?
No. So actually, we don't go under any label at all. So I've chosen in my career as a plant-based and gluten-free chef, I've realized that I've separated my career from my family life, and that's also something that I keep separate on social media. I'm not a lifestyle blogger as such. I would say that I'm probably more of a chef that specializes in plant-based and gluten-free. So in terms of our family, we don't label ourselves as anything, but we are predominantly plant-based.
Right.
If that makes any sense at all. And I think along this journey that I've been on in terms of running wellness retreats and recipe testing and educating myself, you go through stages, and in the beginning it's quite intriguing to see all these new products that pop up in the form of powders and tinctures and things that you can buy in shops that are coming from everywhere. And I was quite fascinated with all of those kind of products in the beginning. And now I feel like I've gone full circle and I'm more passionate about seasonal ingredients. I try and source everything as local as possible. So, for example, when I'm in Bali or when I'm running retreats, I try and find organic farms where I can source all the ingredients from, things that are grown close by, obviously all plant-based. So my emphasis is on being as local as possible and eating in season as much as possible. To label anything at all, that is what I'm really, really passionate about, and sourcing good ingredients that are alive, as in plants, rather than fancy powders that you buy in shops.
Right. How did you decide to go on a plant-based diet? Did you watch documentaries, or did you try other diets, or this is just what you decided to do?
I started cooking at the retreats that I was organizing, and it sort of trickled in. Basically, I also found out that I was severely gluten intolerant, so that was an easy choice then to include a gluten-free sort of diet. And yeah, for the first sort of 4 to 5 years, I was strictly vegan and gluten-free. And the more I traveled, the more restricted that became. And also I traveled to quite remote places like Mongolia. And I've been doing retreats in Iceland, a lot of different places. So I was very strict in the beginning in my personal journey. in terms of veganism. So I do not call myself vegan. I prefer the term plant-based. And yeah, that is something that just happened along with my career and cooking more plants, and they sort of trickled into my life more, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah, no, perfect sense. I know that you don't label it, and it's kind of a deep rabbit hole, that the whole vegan space. So you're just plant-based, and that's your diet, and you have basically done it all by yourself, all alone.
Yeah, and it's been trial and error, and I'm quite... I think that everybody needs to find their own way. And rather than being a diet promoter, I would rather say that I'm a plant promoter, in the sense that I would love to showcase 10 different ways of cooking carrots or different types of plants. And if that is something that attracts you, then the food design for itself be sort of the attracting factor of going, wow, I want to eat this or I want to cook that, rather than labeling it, oh, this is vegan and therefore I want to eat it. I think it's important that we make vegetables the hero dishes in a lot of our meals, and educate ourselves in, making them tasty and interesting. And cooking with the basics. I think it's easy to get lost in substitutes, sort of meat substitutes like seitan and tempeh and soy products, and there's nothing wrong with those, but I like using vegetables and making them the main hero of a dish.
Right. No, that's fantastic. When I turned 50 about 6-7 years ago, I realized that I was unhealthy, and decided that a plant-based diet was the best thing for me by, kind of watching documentaries, doing research, all that stuff. And I have 3 girls, and I decided I just wanted to be around for them.
Right.
Just changed my lifestyle overnight. Is that something that you did? Just changed it overnight, or did it something that you phased in over time with the retreats?
Definitely something that I phased in, but over a short period of time.
Is there something that you prefer to cook? I noticed that you have a lot of edible flower stuff.
Yes, I love edible flowers. Yeah, I think for me what's really important and what tastes best is seasonal produce. So anything that is in season will always taste the best. So at the moment, there's purple sprouting broccoli. We're entering the asparagus season. Rhubarbs are going to be popping up shortly. We just passed the blood orange season, which is amazing, and which is something that I wait for, all year to sort of arrive. And, soon we're going to move into summer, and we're going to have all the berries and tomatoes and cucumbers. So seasonality really excites me, and finding local produce is something that really excites me. So when I do retreats in Bali and get a list of all the stuff that's available at the organic farm that I get all my ingredients from, that excites me. Or when I forage in the rice fields with an amazing grower that grows all sorts of amazing leaves and flowers that are edible, that type of stuff really excites me in terms of the chefing side of things. And, I'm also very excited about simple things like potatoes or, I think over the years I've probably gone back to basics a lot more. And I appreciate good produce that's not tampered with too much, and, that has great taste.
Right. Now, what would you say to somebody who's interested in being plant-based but just thinks it's just too hard to do?
I think baby steps. And start simple. And I think one of the mistakes that people do is they'll go into, a fancy grocery store and then buy lots of things that they don't know how to cook with, in terms of smoothie blends and all sorts of things. I think if you just stick to good basics like pulses, good vegetables, good fruits, nuts and seeds, and you start there, then I think it's a lot easier than to try and overcomplicate and make fancy things. So, yeah, do the basics well and see how you feel as well. I think that's really important, to see what effect it has on your life. And if you feel great, keep going.
Right.
And, usually what happens is that when people feel good, they get more inspired to add more. So to begin with, I would just say add more vegetables and plants to your diet and see how you feel.
Cooking from scratch is one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself and your family. Could you just explain what you mean by that?
So you're in control of what you feed yourself with, and you know what's going into that pot that you're going to feed yourself and your family with. And that is really powerful. There's a study that was made that that people with a high income that eat out a lot, compared to people with a middle income that cook a lot at home, the people that cook a lot at home were healthier, because you're in control of what goes into your pot. And also, cooking is an act of self-care. So you're looking after yourself instantly by making the effort of cooking that meal for yourself. Even if it's just for you, or if it's just for you and a partner, or if it's for your family, the act of self-cooking is an act of self-care. And it's something that we don't take the time to do as often as we used to. So I think that is quite a powerful tool. And sitting together and eating and having that sense of community, all of those elements of cooking, being together, and that's pretty powerful stuff, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Can you maybe give me one word to describe kind of how you felt before, and then one word about how you feel like now after your plant-based diet?
I think I'm more aware now than I was before. So I don't think I was as aware of what was doing to my body before. And I think I'm definitely more aware of where food comes from in every sense of the way. And that is something that's come with this journey that I've been on. Knowing how my food is grown, knowing where it comes from, sourcing my food is really important, knowing where it comes from. Having a relationship with my farmers markets or with my suppliers, all of that matters. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest lesson.
All right. So what's next for you? I mean, I saw something about a second book, and I know obviously about Happy Food.
Yes. So Happy Food is still going strong, which is great. I'm doing a second book that is going to come out in December 2019, and then out January 2020. And that's actually going to be a 7-day vegan challenge. So it's going to be a book that is that basically gives you the tools to go plant-based.
Oh, great.
For 7 days or more. And it's got really simple recipes in with ingredients that you can find anywhere. It's a lot more of a scaled back version of Happy Food. In terms of the ingredients list, it's quite short, and time-wise, the recipes don't take a long time to make, and it's for two-person households. So if you're more, you just double up.
Right.
So it covers the whole waste not aspect as well, of overcooking and having leftovers and things like that.
I would imagine, obviously with you, that would be free from cooking?
Yes, exactly. It is. It's gluten-free as well. Yeah.
Right. I did notice that you have workshops in London. Tell me about that.
I do, yeah. So I've got a workshop called Plant-Based Basics, where I teach people the basics of plant-based eating, and also people that have newfound allergies, and how to swap the usual things like milk and yogurt and breads and other types of food that you would normally find gluten in, or that would be non-plant-based. So that's quite a longer workshop. And then I've got another one, which is a cheese-making workshop, where I do nut cheeses from almonds, macadamias, and cashew nuts. And I go through the whole process of how we age those. So they've got all the good bacteria, minus the animal products, and I pair those with natural wines, and it's a good night.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hope you are inspired by this story, and remember, it's never too late to plant your seed. Links to everything we talked about on the podcast can be found on Instagram at plant.yourseed in the show notes tab in the bio. If you enjoyed the show, remember to leave us a review, and until next time, thank you for listening.